And just because you may not like power doesn't mean that power does not have an interest in you.
Not everything is a clear the temple situation.
But some things are.
Some things are, and when they are, you stand on business.
If you have no direction for her to go in, how is she going to help you along that path? Is she going to help you wander in the desert for 40 years? That's crazy. The wife doesn't want to be the CEO of her husband and tell him what to do, because she's going to lose respect for him that way.
Thermometers.
Y'all really are thermometers, and guys are supposed to be thermostats.
Yeah.
Our job is to go ahead and set the temperature.
Nothing irks a wife more, especially the more modern you are, when you have to manage your husband's feelings.
Yeah, it's gross.
And that's where you get the whole man baby kind of situation, right?
Sure.
Paul in his letter said, be a man.
Oh yeah, because
nobody knows now what that is.
Because in that culture, they knew exactly what that meant. The guys at the top are not worrying at all. They've got the pick of the litter. Be that guy. Have options. Today, we're continuing on with The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. We are going through laws 25 to 28. The laws generally surface around identity, boldness, and self-control. And once again, power is not evil or good in and of itself. It is a tool used to influence others to go ahead and cause things to happen in the world that we live in together. And just because you may not like power doesn't mean that power does not have an interest in you. So there we go.
Oh, we're halfway there.
So law 25 is to recreate yourself. And the idea is that power begins when a man chooses his own identity. And this is a thing that we've tackled a lot before we got into this 48 Laws of Power stuff. We've talked about this a lot, where when a man has no identity, he is prone to drift. And that it isn't necessarily a matter of like divine calling or anything like that, right? But it's more of a, do you have a transcendent cause that you involve yourself in? Is that something that you are devoting your life to? And if so, you're going to have different results that come from that.
Your identity commands your destiny.
Yeah, that's the idea. Now, the thing that really goes ahead and chaps people a lot of times is when they go ahead and start the journey to having direction in their life, they have this thing called imposter syndrome. And that's a thing that affects a lot of people, because there's this common saying, fake it till you make it, right? There is some truth in that. And I think that I would be cautious when letting people think through that process that way, because it should be something that comes within and that you develop yourself for it to be that which shows naturally without.
A Band-Aid, not a blanket solution.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you are in this mindset where you're in fake it till you make it mode, it comes off as inauthentic.
Yeah.
And there will be a period of time in that transition process that it will be inauthentic in some ways, like at least on a surface level, because you may have that conviction that you are like building within yourself or is being drawn out from within, that there's going to be some awkward moments. It's kind of like going through puberty. Yeah. There are some times that going from being a boy to a man or going from a girl to a woman, that there's just some awkwardness to it. And it's just a natural part of the process.
Yeah, any huge developmental like life moves, if you understand that this is what you should be doing, you can just walk in that conviction, but know that there's going to be some awkward and some difficult like moments until you finally almost find your flow. And then you're like, oh, hey, I can do this. Think about when we first became parents.
Okay.
Everybody's that's first 6 weeks. And it really does take 6 weeks, one, for my body to heal from this major event that happened. But also now we got to figure out that there's this tiny human whose very existence depends on us in every facet. It takes 6 weeks for them to figure out how to hold their own head up.
Sure.
Like it's like case in point, but also not so life-shaking things like whenever the older kids especially and we begin a new school year.
Right.
Especially since they started junior high and high school. Before, when they moved from preschool, doing it on our own, to elementary school, where we like started doing this regimented program, we had to figure out how to do this and how to incorporate it into our lives. And then when they started doing more work in the upper elementary stages, where they were doing writing assignments and all of that stuff, you got to figure out, and it probably really does take about 6 weeks to figure out how do. And then you go, oh my gosh, this is a dumpster fire. Especially when I started teaching them like in junior high. It was like, this is so bad. Like, I don't see how. And then all of a sudden, week like 5 or so, you like turn this corner. You're like, okay, see it as a tunnel. I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting it. So there is something to it, but it should be a short-term solution.
And I think it's interesting because a lot of times people will make the mistaken idea that they'll just stumble upon something and that they'll just muddle their way through life and eventually they'll just run into it like a brick wall and then, oh, hey, look, my purpose, it has found me.
Like throwing spaghetti up against the wall.
You're like, see what sticks. That might be a way to determine what your purpose should be, but I think that is a less effective way to do it than starting from core convictions and building out from there.
Yeah, definitely if you just use that approach for life in general, you'll be stuck there.
For a long time, unless you find like some providence goes ahead and comes and kicks you in the nerds and says, this is where you should go, right?
But how often does that really happen?
Yeah, but I tell you what, when the light blinds you on the road to Damascus, things change real quick. But the idea here is that guys that don't have fundamental direction in life are really easy to manipulate and control because they don't have core convictions to stand on that inform what their purpose should be. And so one thing that comes up on a regular basis is when there is an issue that comes up, and I'm going to respectfully mention it to whoever is the other side of the coin, and depending on how they respond, they're going to get a different point of view from me, right? If they're going to go ahead and be instantly defensive when I'm bringing them some matter of conflict where I see that what they say and what they do aren't matching up, or what they are saying as a matter of doctrine doesn't match up with what the book says, like it is really interesting to see how those differences can be brought about. And sometimes it is taken really well, and sometimes it is just hedgehog prickles out kind of thing. And a lot of it has to do with the maturity level of the person at the other side of the conversation.
Which is not equivalent to someone's age.
Right. Just because they're old doesn't mean they're necessarily mature in different facets of life. Like age doesn't automatically beget wisdom, right? Usually they go together in some way, shape, or form, depending on their experiences along the way. And most of the time, by the time you get to 60, you've had a broad spectrum of experiences. But some people are really narrow in their experience pathway. The idea is to be on your mission and to have direction in your life so that you become a man that's somebody to be reckoned with. Like you are somebody that can go ahead and make waves and push a pathway forward when no pathway exists.
This is especially poignant advice if you are somebody who is younger.
Oh, yeah.
And you have direction and vision and all of that stuff. But you need to be cognizant of the fact that especially even people that are much older than you don't have that same mindset. Especially within a community of faith, when there's something that's really flagrantly important that somebody kind of turn from or not do that, and they are older than you and you need to breach the subject, you need to know how to do that respectfully, because all of a sudden, immediately you will be met with defensiveness just as you're some little young little shit who's like popping off or something. That's how they're going to take it. Like, instantaneously.
But it's interesting because even if you approach it respectfully, a lot of times they will default to their age as a matter of proof of knowledge.
Yeah. I'm rather than better than you.
Right. Rather than actually providing the references necessary. And so sometimes you just need to go ahead and go to that person, and in the event that things go awry and
Matthew 18 it up, right?
Yeah. And you go ahead and bring 2 others with you and be like, hey, this is what's going on. It's like there's a process that is put in place for our benefit so that we can go ahead and be respectful to one another and treat each other with deference, and that we can go ahead and respectfully resolve our differences.
Yeah. But the thing is to try and at least as much as it counts on you, live at peace with everybody.
Sure.
Especially in the brethren. But at least you know that you've done your due diligence to broach the subject respectfully, but are trying to emphasize its importance.
Sure. And there's different levels to this too, right? Because if it's just a matter of like preference, that's not really that important. No. If it's a matter of minor doctrine, okay, Sure. If it's a matter of heresy, you need to treat it completely differently.
Yeah.
Right? The seriousness and the urgency of the matter will dictate this thing. So it's contextual, but unless you're a man of purpose and of conviction, you won't be able to tell the difference. Because if you don't have core convictions, you have nothing that really matters to you.
I have no leg to stand on there.
Sure. And so in developing your purpose and core convictions, by doing that, you decide as a man who you are, what you tolerate, and what you stand for. And if you have those three things in place, you are less likely to get pushed around. So just because you are in one direction and you think you need to make a change, it doesn't mean you have to flip tables and go ahead and make wholesale wide sweeping changes to your life. You can do it incrementally, but if the nature demands it, then handle it according to what the situation is.
The most perfect example we have of that. Not everything is a clear the temple situation.
But some things are.
Some things are, and when they are, you stand on business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, like, when you look at this from a marriage perspective, attraction for one's husband collapses when he does not know where he's going. Because there is nothing for her to submit to if he is not standing up for something. If he is not doing his part to lead, you can ask her to obey and submit and all of that. And those are things that are within God's word for her to do. But what is she going to submit to? If you have no direction for her to go in, how is she going to help you along that path? Is she going to help you wander in the desert for 40 years? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, the wife doesn't want to be the CEO of her husband and tell him what to do because she's going to lose respect for him that way.
No matter what they actually say.
What do you mean?
Pay attention to what she does, not what she says.
Yeah, and who she does, right? Where do you think that women stand when a guy is like rebranding himself a lot? What do you think about that?
He's a waffle.
He's a waffle. Okay. Now, say he's a younger guy and he's like beginning this development journey. What is like the female thought process behind that? Like, you say waffling, but is that necessarily a bad thing, or is it just a matter of that's your first impression kind of thing?
I'm taking it and running with it as like, this is a state of being. Where
Okay.
it's like, especially if you're talking about reinvention for the sake of reinvention.
Okay, without underlying purpose to
Yeah.
it.
Again, when you don't have a core identity to make adjustments to be in line with.
Got it. So when you're making the assumption that the guy like doesn't have a core identity and he's just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Exactly.
And because there is a lack of core direction, the effort looks like wandering. Okay.
And there is something, especially obviously in a marriage, if you are struggling, there's this thing called communication.
Right.
And you can be like, I don't know what we're doing exactly, and I need to figure that out. And as a solid like spouse, you would see that and just instantly be like, how can I help you?
Sure.
Can we talk about it? Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and dictate you need this and that, especially at that kind of fork in the road kind of thing. At this point where you're at a crossroads, you need to you're not going to sit there and go, you need to this and you need to that.
Yeah.
No, you need to be the sounding board.
Sure. And I think I would take a different point of view on it because I think that as a guy, you shouldn't be going directly to your wife first.
No.
I think that you are much better off seeking wise counsel from other men that have gone through that pathway before you.
Definitely not. But like the thing is, especially if you are a quality spouse, you would see that in your husband. You're like, I'm seeing something's happening.
Off. Yeah.
What's up? And I just need to know. And really, it's not like we need to talk about this and you need to like confide in me about it. No, it's just, how can I help you?
Right.
And if that does mean just tell me where you're at, cool. But more like just hands open, like just an open hand, like how can I help you?
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to help you.
Yeah. And when your wife goes ahead and comes up to you like that, it's probably an indication that if you didn't notice that something was up, she has noticed it before you have. And I think that it is a beautiful gift that women typically have, that they read the room much faster than we do a lot of times, is they are much more readily looking out for all the subtle signs and nuances because that's how girl world works. You all go ahead and feel each other out, and you try to go ahead and find
We're
consensus.
thermometers. We
Y'all
really
are thermometers, and guys are supposed to be thermostats.
Yeah.
Our job is to go ahead and set the temperature, and that temperature is reflected on the thermostat or on the thermometer face.
That's especially, I think that is where women get the ick when it comes to men, especially men that they are married to. Nothing irks a wife more, especially the more modern you are, when you have to manage your husband's feelings.
Yeah, it's gross.
In that direction, of course, and that's where you get the whole man baby kind of situation, right?
Sure.
Which I can absolutely yes, that's a thing.
Yeah, whereas I think that the natural state of being is for it to be the opposite, where it is the man's responsibility to go ahead and take a look at your emotional state and to be like, what the hell's going on here?
What's going on?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like I'm looking at the thermostat. I'm set here. The thermometer says there's a difference. What's accounting for this difference?
Yeah.
And then as deductive problem solvers like we are, we go ahead and look at things. And then when we have some inkling of what's going on, we'll go ahead and communicate and then see if those two things jive. And if there's a gap, figure out from there. And a lot of times it's just you guys have variance sometimes.
Yeah, but also a lot of the times it's happening and it's a very simple solution.
Yeah.
I know in our personal experience that has been a thing where it's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, there's a very simple solution here. We could do that. I can help you I'll help you do this one little thing that kind of takes that barrier that's causing such a shift all the time. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I think that for most guys that don't have the long history and they're early on in this process, a lot of times the right question to start with is, do you want to talk about it or do you want it fixed? And I think that far too many men jump to, I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
Without understanding whether that's the problem or if the feelings associated with it are the problem. Because often in girl world, it is the feelings that are associated with it, not the actual thing.
Yeah.
Like when, say you do something or a woman does something wrong and the guy wants her to apologize. Rather than actually apologizing, if she knows deep down that she's in the wrong, instead of offering the apology, which is the logical thing to do based on what a guy would do, instead, the woman will go ahead and make extraordinary effort to make him feel better by doing other things, right? Because it's just like, I'm recognizing that I'm in the wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and make things better by making you feel better, not by changing the behavior. In a lot of ways, women are misguided that way because ideally it's both and. Ideally, you go ahead and you come forward, you change the behavior, which was the root cause of the problem to begin with, the root cause of the consternation, the bad feelings, and you go ahead and do the other things. That would be the best, but that's just not likely to happen in most circumstances until you build up a strong, long-lasting connection over time.
Shared history and stuff where you can recognize these things. It was really funny because a lot of women, when they start to get seriously frustrated with their man, where they're at this point where they're going to consider divorce.
Right.
For these kind of reasons, not I'm bored and he's such a good man and I'm divorcing him anyway.
Sure.
Sorry, that's a whole nother animal. But this whole thing, it's interesting because they're the ones who are going to sit there and go, I can't stand it that he sits there and talks a lot about this, but he never changes his behavior. Mm-hmm. When that is the exact thing that honestly that men put up with for far too long.
Yeah.
From women. Because they don't even get to that point where they say, can you just acknowledge that this is a thing that is happening and that it's not okay?
Right. Because confession is usually the first step of changing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's taking the responsibility.
Right.
Which
is like kryptonite to women sometimes,
Yep,
right?
it is.
And it's unfortunate, but it's just one of those things where I think that it comes from back in the day when admitting wrong is something that could have got them cast out of the tribe. So instead of admitting fault, they try to make things get niced over
Yep.
to make people feel better about it, not actually change the behavior. Does that make sense?
And also, especially with a group of women, not enforcing a commonly accepted standard. Like, we held this tenet, but we're not going to hold anybody accountable for it. We'll just nice it over and we'll start fresh.
We'll
And
just
it's like,
pretend it never happened.
until it happens again, and then rinse and repeat. Nobody's going to be happy with that.
Right.
So then you start making those shadow moves and backstabbing and cloak and dagger stuff. And it's like, why don't we just hold the standard in the first place? It just averts so many problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we hit
only.
that one pretty good.
All right,
Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So law number 26 is keep your hands clean. So the idea is that powerful people avoid unnecessary entanglements, blame, and visible messes. If you're going to be messy, don't let people see that it's messy.
Then also, if you're going to try and hide your mess,
Yeah.
be real good about it.
Right. You
Don't
hire
feel-
out the dirty business, right? Like most of the politicians out there, they don't go ahead and do the dirty thing themselves. They go ahead and have their shadow underlings do it for them so that they can go ahead and have a nice, neat, squeaky clean kind of image thing, even though they're the puppet masters in the background, right? Now, I think that it's interesting because a lot of this on an individual level can be a difference between the way your emotional state presents itself in public. If you get to go as a guy, if you keep a stiff upper lip in public, it's a lot easier to go through life and not invite unnecessary drama. Whereas if you're an emotional guy out in public, drama's just going to find you much more often.
It's like a duck.
What do you mean?
All the paddling under the surface.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just really bad at being a duck,
Upside down,
there you
and
go.
then you're like, your webbed feet are just kicking above the water.
Think about that.
Yeah, and then if you're flailing like that, like you're just inviting guys to come and pick on you. Most of the time for your benefit. So you'd be like, push you aside so that you can go ahead and capsize in the other direction. So you're right
Right.
side up instead of,
Get your head up there. What's she doing?
what are you doing, guy?
Silly duck.
Sure. And I think
Silly
that
goose.
by the same token, if you are like over explaining your actions or you're constantly defending yourself and all of that and being like reactionary as your general state of
Yes.
being, it's really messy and it like drives down your authority so much.
It's like, everybody stop and think about somebody who is, especially a man, if they are proactive as opposed to being reactive.
Okay.
Which do you prefer to associate with?
Proactive, clearly.
Especially relationally and professionally.
Yeah, I think that generally speaking, the proactive approach is usually lends itself to stability and order and things of that nature, which are in line with masculine characteristics. Whereas generally speaking, women are more reactionary in nature because they are accustomed to reading the emotional temperature around them and finding their way into the consensus, whatever the consensus is, because so many women are just sheep by their nature. It isn't that they're not independent thinkers, is they don't want their independent thoughts to put them at odds with the consensus a lot of times.
I mean, think about a gaggle of chicks. Like,
Right?
they want to be accepted.
Right.
And once you are not, and how does that happen in the first place? Reacting to something they did
Yes.
or didn't do that is unacceptable to the consensus.
Right. And then out they go. There you go.
It's not, oh, this is, you're being so reductionist, or you're like, this is so terrible that you're saying. It isn't good or bad. It just is. Might as well go with it and lean into it rather than sitting here and like going, no, we have to not be like this. This is how we got to this feminized culture in the first place.
Sure. And another thing for guys is there's a big difference between being accountable and then just self-incriminating, right? You can be accountable for your actions and not overly expose yourself to liability, right? Just because you've done a thing and you know that it's wrong and you go ahead and come forward and accept responsibility is not the same thing as being dramatic about it and drawing more attention than it needs to be drawn, right? Just keep a stiff upper lip, take your lickings, and move on. Is
Yeah.
generally the better strategy.
Think about a dude, if they're confronted with something that they've done and they sit there and then they say, you did this and you did that, and completely deflect, how does that, like, in your being, what does that make you think of? He's
Women.
acting like a chick.
It makes me think of women right there because that is very effeminate behavior.
It is.
Right? Because whereas
Again, the whole taking responsibility thing.
a more masculine guy would go ahead and take responsibility for his part, and then he would introduce mitigating circumstances if warranted.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes there is a certain amount to be blamed, and you can take the 10% that you're responsible for and say, look, this right here, this piece of the puzzle, I messed this up. I could have done better. This is what I'm going to do in the future. This other stuff, I don't have any influence or control over it. I would go ahead and talk to A, B, and C and X, Y, Z about that. I'm not here to go ahead and tell you how to pursue that, but I'm going to go ahead and take responsibility for my part.
Yeah. By and large, when I hear especially women talk about they've had a divorce or whatever.
Yeah?
What do they say? He did this and he wasn't that.
What about your part?
The thing is that, and then when you say, okay, what did you do? Why are you blaming me? He did all these things. I don't even care if it was a 90-10 split and you were only responsible for the 10. Own up to the 10. Like, just tell me one thing that you could have done better. They won't.
Right, because the fact that you asked the question shows that you're out of step with the consensus. Oh, you're supposed to be on my team.
Yes.
Why aren't you on my team?
Yeah, they're like, why are
we're
you
going to
being so
shame
hateful?
you.
Why are you victim blaming?
Yeah, why are you victim blaming?
Sorry.
As if they're the victim. Where
I'm just asking for 10% of ownership. Just 10.
and that's
5.
And that's assuming that is the case, where it is totally possible where she's responsible for 95% of it. And she's just like deflecting all this little bit. She could have gone and saw that he did something and then went completely off the deep end and slept with 15 guys. And then she divorced him because he's not doing his part, even though he just didn't bring the extra loaf of bread or something.
Yeah.
Something just set her off. I mean,
Those weren't lined up.
yeah, obviously that's a really extreme circumstance,
Yeah.
but it's not as if it doesn't happen. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The crazy part is it does happen. The fact that it does happen is the crazy bit.
But it's just, you won't even tell me. And it's not even a percentage. Don't even quantify it. Just tell me one thing you could have done better. And they won't even do that.
Sure. And here's the thing too is like just because somebody brings an accusation to your feet doesn't mean you have to engage with it either. Like some accusations are going to be so crazy that you don't even have to talk about it. You can just be like, okay, where's your evidence? And then move on.
Or even not. Like, if there is something that is so flagrantly crazy and the accusation is just so out of line with your character, be the villain in their story.
Yeah.
Just let them have it. Let them go. Let them talk. Let them rail. The thing is, you know who you are. You know what you're about. And that's the best part about having identity, having values that, you know, you are living in line with.
Yeah. If you have core convictions, it's hard to go ahead and see dismissal of your core convictions as something that is normal, right? If somebody goes ahead and they're egalitarian in their fundamental belief system and they come to me and they get upset that I say that women have roles that are separate from men's roles and that we are naturally aligned with different things, it isn't though women. It's just that I see it fundamentally different than they do. But they can easily make an accusation of misogyny or whatever, and it's reflective of their value system. But in my value system, it is completely crazy to bring that up because there is a fundamental respect for the different roles and responsibilities at hand.
Honestly, I'm more of a misogynist than you are.
Yeah, I think that you just...
Because I see how the sausage is made.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I see how the strap-on is applied.
Gross. Oh my gosh.
But just, I know the women's psyche. So like, I have way less tolerance and you are way more even keeled about your view about things. So when people get in the comments and be like, you're a misogynist. Oh my God, you have no idea. No, clearly I'm the one who knows more than anyone how much of a misogynist you aren't.
Yeah, but still, it's just one of those things where it's coming from like ideology and it's not coming from what's actually being said.
Yeah, the thing is like...
They just get triggered by something and they
so
go
they
off.
just throw out the insults and stuff,
Sure.
the ad hominem and stuff. I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah,
Buffy.
so in the context of a marriage, like if you are oversharing emotionally to your woman and you're just like going through every like last little detail without providing an interesting narrative to go along with it, 1, she's going to get bored. 2, she's going to lose respect for you. And 3, you're going to have to go through so much nonsense because of that loss of respect. It's just not a good strategy. Just tell her the highlights. And then if there's any like things that she needs to follow up on as a result of it, give her that proper context. And that's it. Like you don't need to go deep on this unless she asks clarifying questions, which she will. Because women are context-based and not necessarily content-based.
Want the full thing. But honestly, we are complete hypocrites in this because 1, especially coming from a man, it hits different. That whole nuanced, full-fledged narrative story coming from a man, most women will say it's annoying.
They'll be like, you're mansplaining to me.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That whole thing. And also,
Unless it's entertaining. If it's entertaining, they're down for it.
Obviously, but like when you want the basic story, you want to choose your own adventure and you ask the clarifying questions that are pertinent to your understanding.
Right.
And we're all different. That's the thing. It's like every woman wants to think they're special. So let them just give you the framework and then you figure out what details you need to pull in there. Well, just let them give the basic stuff. So I was like, but the thing is also, and that's the thing with trying to dwell together as different creatures entirely,
Right.
is us trying to figure this out. And if I ask you questions that it wasn't pertinent to you for you to ask in the situation, I think it was Jeff Foxworthy or somebody they were talking about,
Oh, the phone call?
yeah, the thing, my buddy's getting a divorce. Oh my gosh, what happened? And oh my gosh, what did she say about it? Like, how did she tell him and stuff like
And
that?
he says the same
And he's
piece
like,
of
I
information.
don't know. I didn't ask. And then she's getting upset at him for not asking all of these extra questions that were pertinent to her, but not to him.
Right.
Just because I don't know at this moment doesn't mean I won't know later. It was just a quick, this is what's happening. We'll meet up go have beer later or something. I don't know, go play pool. Whatever it is, meet at the shop and go play Magic. And we'll talk about it later. Then you can have that kind of background information to like ask, as you will. It's your relationship with your friend.
Yeah. And the other side of the coin is maybe that's all you need to know, and I need you to do this thing.
Be okay with just that.
I need you to go ahead and talk to this guy's wife, or I need you to go ahead and pray for this relationship. I need you to do a thing. And this is the context that I'm giving you, and that's all there is right now. And I think it's important for men and women to be able to be on the same sheet of music in a marriage, that sometimes that's the thing.
Yeah.
And when you're a guy and you go ahead and just like backpedal and you just like wilt under these clarifying questions, I think it's just ridiculous. And it ends up like wearing away at a woman's respect for you. Because sometimes you could just be like, look, that's all I got. When I know more, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
And if she keeps asking questions, it's, lady,
Look, I don't
I literally
know.
just told you.
Yeah. This was in reverse. We had a situation where friends that we were both friends with both spouses, that they were having problems. And I was the one who got the full-fledged thing from her perspective, from the wife. And I was like, hey man, you should probably go check in with the husband and go ask him if he's okay.
Right.
And that's all I said, really, because I knew that one was all you needed to know. That was all the pertinent information. Also, it really isn't your place to just delve. You just can do a cursory. But I knew, knowing the husband, it was like the floodwaters were going to burst probably. And probably because he didn't have, just in case he didn't have somebody else to talk about it with.
Right.
Yeah, it was in reverse. But if it was the husband first saying, oh, his wife's having problems, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what happened? And you're like, I don't know. That's all I got right now. Okay. That it could just as easily work the opposite way.
Sure.
Where it's like, hey, are you okay? And chances are the wife would be like, this is what's going on with me. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I could tell somebody.
Right.
So it's funny that even if it was the other way around, just one, are you okay text would just do the same thing. So you don't need all the details.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting because you really establish a good framework for what emotional safety can look like in having a conversation like this is knowing the difference between needing to know every detail and being confident in the answer you're being provided, right?
Yeah.
If a guy loves his woman and knows his woman, he can go ahead and give her the lowdown that makes sense for her based on the details that he has that are relevant to her. And if he has no other relevant details, it's important for him to go ahead and let her know up front before she starts spinning out.
Yeah.
Right? And so by being clear in your communication with your wife, it prevents a whole lot of drama. Like, seriously, if you want to go ahead and start some drama over some fun things, right? Don't go ahead and waste drama points on stuff that has nothing to do with your actual relationship. Like,
Definitely.
it just does not make sense to get her to burn her emotional triggers on that when you can go ahead and get her emotional triggers somewhere else.
Spin the hamster wheel for good.
Yeah, you got to spin the hamster wheel for good works. So the next law is play on people's need to believe. This is an interesting one. So people are often drawn to meaning and certainty and direction, and they just want to believe in something. So the idea is that men and women like to follow somebody that has clear and direct conviction, regardless of what it is. if you are not beating around the bush about stuff, it is much easier to follow them. Now, you can go ahead and add nuance in later because obviously a headline or a bumper sticker or a slogan is something that's easier to align yourself to than like a political platform. Look at the Obama campaign. It's yes, we can. Yes, we can what? It doesn't matter. The point was it was a rallying call for political change and hope, right?
Which he ripped off of Bob the Builder. And Bob the Builder was more fleshed out than that. Because he had, can we build it?
Can we build it? Yes, we can. But the thing is, that takes too long, right? And then it doesn't work well in Spanish because yes, we can in Spanish is, right? And it's just, right? It's what are we going to do?
¿Qué hacemos?
Yeah, ¿qué hacemos? Right? But it gets to the point of a rallying cry that is a slogan or something like that is a lot easier to get behind than, let's go ahead and flesh out the 95 Theses and go ahead and figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, Martin Luther, let's see what you're all about.
Our full 4-year plan.
Let's go ahead and figure this all out. But we can just say, hey, we're down. We want to work against this whole indulgences and none of this purgatory thing. We're done with this, right? That could be the easier way to go ahead and be like, oh, hey, the Protestant Reformation, we're doing the thing. But no, it's 95 Theses, let's freaking go. But it goes to show that you can start with a simple idea and then flesh it out later. Mm-hmm. And by echoing the simple idea, you can start a movement. And you can go ahead and flesh it out with people that are your adherents. Like if you have somebody that's a diehard follower, you can spend time going down the list and be like, this is what I'm talking about when I say this. And they can figure out if they're on board or not.
Exactly.
But I think that so many people don't have the mental capacity or the mental energy to spend on more than a bumper sticker sometimes, which is why like our news cycle is so sensational.
Definitely. Again, speaking of news cycles and stuff, make sure that headline is not clickbait.
But you want to start drama sometimes.
What did I just just last night? I was like, this different like Disney news thing where it was like, oh my gosh, Disney is putting out merchandise for a Christian holiday. And it was Easter, and they were talking about putting the characters on a shirt in Easter eggs.
Yeah.
What?
You're taking all the pagan side of Easter and you're putting that as if that's the Christian part of it. It's not like they're putting Mickey Mouse with a cross, right?
They aren't putting Walt Disney World or Disneyland with the T or the L with a little cross with a little cloth on it.
Yeah. They're not doing any of that.
They weren't even doing that. And it was funny. And was like, and that's not all. They're doing hotel like Easter egg displays and stuff. They've been doing that for years. And Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny in the parks, like they've been doing that for years. They're like trying to inflame these people for no good reason.
They're trying to go, they're fishing for clicks. And so they'll go ahead and take something that's a complete non-issue and they'll go ahead and frame it in such a way to go ahead and get people real Gerd, got to go ahead and click on this to figure out what's up. Whereas we're clicking on it going, there's no freaking way. There's no way this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, it wasn't.
Sure enough, it isn't. Yeah,
but
exactly.
Some people are going to be like, roar, they're doing Christian stuff. Oh my gosh, let's click on it. And
subtle Christian overtones.
Yeah.
That's funny. Just yesterday, my 9th graders and I watched the recording of, which I'd never done, and were discussing the Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream
speech. Okay.
And we talked about how he's referencing from being a discord of voices to a symphony united. And he talks about singing Let Freedom Ring, the whole song and all of that stuff. So we talk about that. But it goes, Let Freedom Ring from the mountains of all these like northern states and all these progressive places in the West.
Right.
And then it goes down and it talks about hills and molehills in the Deep South.
Right.
As representative. So it's a rhetorical like device that we're discussing. But then I realized they didn't know the phrase making a mountain out of a molehill.
So you got to get the idiomatic expression.
Yes. And that was a whole thing too, because especially we've also been studying Shakespeare and how idioms that hundreds of years old are still prolific today.
Right.
So it was a whole thing. I was like, oh, you guys don't know, man. Okay.
There's a whole story to it.
Mountains and molehills, man. It was amazing. It was really cool.
Well, it's really funny because so many Chinese idiomatic expressions are like set 4-character expressions. And then there's an ancient Chinese story that goes along with it. Like, for two birds, one stone, like we have in English, they have two birds, one arrow. And so they'll go ahead and talk about the story of this guy that was such a prolific hunter that he managed to get two birds with one arrow. And it's, oh, okay, that makes sense. You have a whole story that goes along with it.
Makes me think of that Brave Little Tailor. It's a bad game of telephone. 7 in 1 blow.
What do you mean?
It was 7 flies that he caught with 1 strike.
Oh, okay.
With 1 swat. And it got to where the king heard that he killed 7 giants in 1 blow. Yeah, it was the whole thing.
Yeah. So that's interesting because, like, when we go ahead and talk about certainty, a lot of times guys will have false bravado, right? They seem so sure of themselves, but when you go ahead and peel the first layer back, it is vacant. There's nothing there to it. It's just a show. There's no substance behind it. And I think that guys run afoul of that. And this relates directly to Law 25, where it's like, if you don't have core convictions, the appearance of being sure-footed and decisive and having meaning is only skin deep at that point. And so you're going to fall into all kinds of snares and traps if you have not thought through this process. Like, absolutely. If you thought through it, go ahead and be sure. Stand on business. Stand on your core convictions. But if you don't, it's okay to take a back seat and take time to actually know what you believe and why you believe it. I don't think any man in their right mind will talk down to a man who is in the process of thinking through his core convictions and is still actively searching. Because I think that at a fundamental level, us men have that as one of our deepest challenges in life. And we can recognize when somebody is on the pilgrim's path themselves. And I never want to be that guy that's going to put a stumbling block in front of that guy who's trying to find his way.
Especially at the beginning of the journey.
Oh, yeah.
When they're trying to like establish, am I really doing? Because there's so much that's going to mess with your brain. Is this what I should be doing? Is this the right thing? And then once they have that click of confirmation that yes, this is the right way. Yeah. Whether or not it's difficult, that's the whole thing. But if you are like, okay, this is hard, but this is what I should be doing.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of the parable of the sower a lot of ways, right? It's like, say you are the sower and you're sowing these seeds and you're like, I don't know which one of these is going to germinate. And you're like, I think this is the pathway. And then the crows come and just snap it up.
Yep.
Like, that's the thought process of, hey, if this guy is earnestly seeking and then he has a stumbling block just thrown right in front of him. Right? That's how I visually represent it to myself when I think through this process.
I think the biggest problem in this culture is people are less and less okay with saying, I don't know.
Yeah, there is something to that where if people admit ignorance on something, people just jump all over them. And I think that's ridiculous, especially if you are in the process of seeking out truth. Now, if you are in ignorance and you are mired in it and you just go ahead and roll in it like a pigsty and you're just rolling in your ignorance, okay. Yeah, definitely make fun of that guy. That guy's a fool. Let's go ahead and
the thing is,
ridicule him until he figures it out.
I don't know does not and should not be a complete sentence because it should be followed with, I don't know, but I'm going to find out.
I think it depends on the context of the situation, right? Because I think that some things, if we're talking about matters of conviction, yes, I'm 100% on board. But I think that I don't know is an acceptable answer for a lot of questions in life. Because there are some questions that we cannot know, right? There is a limit to how we can ascertain that knowledge. And then there are other things that it is not high enough on your priority list to spend the time to seek the knowledge associated with it. But if we're talking about matters of core conviction, yeah, I think I don't know is not an acceptable answer.
That's the thing is we've been framing this in the context of like culture and vision and character formation and stuff like that. Those are very objective things. Even if you say, I don't know, but I'm going to go find out, to at least consider what's out there.
Okay.
And it may come where you hit this roadblock where, yeah, maybe we can't know for sure. But at least you can have an idea, or at least you can go, oh, there's to a point where, okay, this is a little above my pay grade.
Right.
And it's interesting, especially in those kind of things where it's I'm a Bible-believing Christian, and this is what the Bible says, and I don't like it.
Sure.
And that's a whole spiritual wrestling match you got to struggle with, which is okay.
Yeah.
And some things, Some things, that's messed up. I don't know that I believe it. And sometimes it's just this unsettling in your soul. You don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and go, this must be all lies and myths.
Yeah. And sometimes you've been taught a certain way and you've never gone to verify it yourself.
Exactly.
And go, is this what it's actually saying? I remember one time I actually broke down the whole like, hey, if you look lustfully upon another woman, you've committed adultery with her in your heart. If you actually look at the Greek associated with it, that does not match up line for line with the English. There's a lot of nuance with that because the word woman there is the word for wife. So if you are lusting, that is to covet sexually, another man's wife, of course that's adultery. That is definitionally adultery.
It's funny because that's a whole different, like, one of the 10 commandments.
Yeah, it's two. You're breaking two commandments at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
You're breaking thou shalt not covet and thou shalt not commit adultery, right? It's both. You're combining both at the same time. And then people will go ahead and get confused about what adultery means too. And then they go ahead and they completely disregard that by biblical definition of adultery back in Leviticus, an unmarried woman cannot possibly commit adultery. It cannot happen. And
The Bible is so misogynistic.
and adultery always involves a married woman, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. So we can get into that like some other time when we talk about family matters next season. Like there's a lot there. Like one time I did like just this word study and it just blew my mind and I had to just dig in for a few days to go ahead and be like, what the heck is going on here? And it turns out that a lot of fundamental beliefs that I had at the time were there because I misunderstood what was going on there.
Yeah. And a lot of people who get a lot of surface, they're confronted with this thing from the Bible.
Yeah.
Where they're approaching it from this modern culture. We were talking about one when we were in LA.
Yeah.
I remember that part. We were like going to your mom's house from, yeah. Okay. But anyway, like a lot of these things, people are like, oh, the Bible's full of contradictions and all this stuff. The way you're approaching it from your modern, evolved perspective is making you misunderstand it in a completely, I would struggle with that too if I were you.
That's because you're performing eisegesis. You're going ahead and you're reading stuff into the text instead of exegesis where you are drawing from the text. And I think that's the fundamental problem for the most part, for most people, is they go ahead and they perceive a gap. And rather than going ahead and pursuing the gap, they go ahead and take the surface level response and they go ahead and take that as it is. And to them, it ends up in contradiction. When if you knew what the context of the thing was in the first place, it would be clear that there is no contradiction.
Yeah, which is also why when I was going to Bible college studying in a Great Books program, before we even were allowed to discuss the Bible, even amongst a bunch of 18, almost 19-year-olds, we had to take a full 12-hour biblical exegesis seminar because you need to have all this background information before you can even get here.
Sure.
And it was rightly so for us to intelligently discuss with one another and struggle with text together. We needed that frame of reference.
Yeah. So all of that is to say that in order for you to have the confidence and the certainty and the direction and the drive, all these things that provide you that which to stand upon, there's a lot of work that goes into it, right? So that you don't just have surface level confidence over what your beliefs are. And far too few people take the time to wrestle with it properly. And we live in this crazy, fast-paced culture, and we have all the information at our fingertips, but so much of that information is bad information. And so you have to go ahead and really dig through and figure out what's good and what's bad and filter through it.
People do not take the time to fully flesh out the context that they are approaching it, and the context that it exists in.
Yeah.
And there's always a constant mismatch.
Yeah, what's interesting is the challenge that we face today is the exact opposite challenge that was faced in the 1st and 2nd century, for example, right? So ever since the printing press, the common man has had access to the scriptures, whereas in times past, it was really something that was reserved for the cleric class. The clerics had access to all the scriptures, and you'd have to go ahead and get to them and go from there. And whether it's clerics or the aristocracy also had access to the scriptures because they had enough money to pay for the scribes to go ahead and properly have true translations and true transcripts properly scribed. They were the only ones that could afford it. And so you had the church that went ahead and paid for that, And then you had the aristocracy that would also pay for it.
The majority of the clergy were the ones doing the copying too.
Sure. And so they didn't have to go ahead and pay the money. They were doing the work, right? And so now we have this problem of too much information, and we have to go and vet the information rather than having too little information. And then you depend on the magisterium to go ahead and properly vet the information on your behalf because you don't have access to it to divine from it for yourself. Now, I think that in so many ways, men have a fundamental need to believe in something beyond themselves. And whether it's God or whether it is a transcendent purpose that has enough meaning for them to devote their life to it, they need to have something that's bigger than themselves. Because otherwise, if they are their highest purpose, that leads to narcissism.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No.
Right? And don't get me wrong, there is plenty to be said about improving yourself and developing your skills, your talents, all of that. But the question is, in pursuit of what, right?
Yeah.
Because if it is the only pursuit in and of itself, it's vanity. Just like pursuit of riches, just like pursuit of honor, pursuit of all these things. Solomon let us know what was going on, and he knew this a lot better than most people out there, right? He had pursued so many things, and in the end, his conclusion was all of it is vanity, apart from the love of God. Without God, none of it makes sense. And if you're a man and you don't have something that's transcendent, that's something beyond yourself, you're going to be caught in so many traps and mires. And just by standing on business and having something that you're confident in, that you've worked out over a number of years or however long it takes for you to work it out, it is so powerful because there are so few people that can knock you off course. And just the way that you can go ahead and stand tall in it, people can see it from a mile away.
Yeah.
It is really interesting to see a confident man and how people wrap themselves around him compared to somebody that just has slumped shoulders and doesn't really believe in anything and has Cheeto dust on his hands and all that, right? It's a completely different vibe because one attracts people and one repels people.
That's the best thing about being a traditional wife who follows her husband, just following you in a crowded space. Like, you just walk and it's interesting. I just get to follow, right? So I'm like just observing the world, being the thermometer that I am. And you just observe like people, especially, and you could see those men, the Cheeto dust hand men, where you are walking and everybody's like moving around you. Yeah. You are not even like veering. You're not bobbing and weaving through the crowd. You're just walking and everybody's, let's go around. And I'm just like, okay.
I think that so many people have an intrinsic sense of walking with purpose. When someone is walking with purpose and conviction, you don't want to go ahead and stand in their way, right? And I think that people just have this intrinsic sense that's what's going on. And then it reminds me, do you remember SAO, like Elicitation, the third season, where basically the nobility had different authority levels and they could go ahead and inflict their will on other people?
Yeah.
So it was like that, or Baldur's Gate 3 is another example. Is every now and then you'd have the goblin would have the mark on their face show up, and then you would have the ability to influence what they did.
Authority.
And then you go ahead and do the thing. It's like that in a lot of ways, is the level of conviction that you go ahead and stand on and the level of purpose that you go ahead and drive your life through. Interestingly enough, it works a lot the same way. Is because there are, I don't want to go ahead and phrase it like offensively, but there are lesser men that will just go ahead and bend to that, right? And I encourage you, do not be the lesser man. Go ahead and take the time to reckon with all the things that are important in life and figure out what you believe in so that you can walk with purpose, because we need more of that in our society.
You could always already see how when people encounter this rarity,
right,
people react. People have a reaction, whether they acknowledge it or not, whether they even want to or not.
Right.
There's just this response, even if it's just a shift in demeanor, a shift in being addressed by somebody. You're different.
Right. And it's just interesting because just talking to someone in a different way gets them to adjust themselves. Like I had a meeting with somebody and they were like a little bit like more gruff than they should have been. And I was just like, hey, what are you doing? Like, this is what we're here for. I'm here for this purpose, and I'm going ahead and doing my part. Why are you treating me like this? And then the tone of the conversation completely shifted because they're like, oh, I'm the a-hole. let me go ahead and fix myself.
But also just somebody saying, I'm not going to put up with this.
Right.
When probably everybody else has.
Sure, because they just bend and fold to the winds of change. And it's, look, this is not right. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to go ahead and give you a warning shot. And if you want to persist in this, we can go ahead and escalate. We don't need to do that. And just by going ahead and letting them know where I stand, they were really quick to back off. And I wasn't being threatening. I was just expressing a boundary and holding it.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. Well, it was funny because like my general manager was next to me and he's a pretty decent guy. Like I'd love to have him as a son-in-law down the road if he ever, that would be awesome.
Don't say
Whatever. He's not going to watch it. But if he does, hey, Jose, I'm talking to you,
Oh my
buddy.
gosh, that's funny.
That would be hilarious. But it's interesting to see how in those interactions, how he sees the difference in it. And it's interesting because I thanked him for doing the driving and he thanked me for doing the talking. It's just pretty funny how that works out. Yeah.
It's fun to see, especially I don't go with you guys, but when you guys go to the game conference once a year, just to see you guys come back, your dynamic is just so much more concentrated because you've been together for the better part of a week.
Yeah.
So I just love y'all's dynamic when you guys I just get to witness it a lot.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. But how you guys, the best part of, and the reason I love him so much is the fact that he knows his wheelhouse, he knows his strengths. And that's what makes him a great manager.
Right.
Is that he knows what he doesn't know. And he knows that other people are better at things than he is. And he leans into what he's good at, but he's also, having seen him for the last 8 years,
Yeah.
develop different things that he wasn't so great at that he needed to be.
Yeah. And he's so much
That's the
better at
best thing.
so many things
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's really cool.
So what do you think is the difference between somebody that is certain and when they feel reassuring and whether they feel controlling? How does that show up differently to women?
We talk a lot about men holding frame.
Okay.
And when you establish that framework and allow people to move in it, that is confidence and competence personified. Rather than trying to be the frame and the fill. Then you're just...
How would that look practically speaking?
Okay, you can see this in like relationships, spousal, like marriage relationships, and professional, especially corporate relationships.
Okay.
You see this in like our traditional marriage. You just lay out the boundaries, and I get to work within that, which helps me do what I do best, and which helps everything work better.
Right.
In a corporate structure, that as a good, solid leader who allows people, you establish those boundaries, those left and right boundaries, and you allow the people who are good at this and that and the other to work within that. Where it goes badly when you try to be that frame and fill, you become a micromanager.
Okay.
And you become a controlling spouse. That is genuinely a control issue. And especially because it's going to go badly because you can't be good at everything.
Right.
And you won't empower other people to work in their specialities.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well. It's going to go badly, and everybody's going to all suffer through it.
Yeah.
And it's of your making. That's the thing about leadership is you also have the responsibility. So when you do that kind of stuff, it's your fault.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because like a good example of good leadership in this, I think, is when we started our 4-player Stardew Valley, right? Each of us had a different role that we were assigned according to our nature and according to what we had the capability to do. And it was just like, okay, you're good at repetitive tasks and you're good at following direction and establish. When I go ahead and provide you a blueprint, you can go ahead and take that blueprint and bring it into reality. Whereas like our older daughter she's all over the place, but she's good at fielding requests and then filling in gaps.
Yeah,
Whereas,
and working it into a streamlined, efficient queue.
Yeah.
She's almost like a sim where it's like she's good at ordering the things, but you just give her the jumble of spaghetti and say, I need you to get to all this. And she'd be like, okay, cool. And she'll like put things in order and do the things. And it's amazing.
Yeah. And then whereas my son and I would go ahead and provide leadership and direction to everybody. And my son is a good warrior. So he would go ahead and do the warrior stuff. And I would go ahead and do that as well while going ahead and managing the process along the way so that he can go ahead and get a vision for what leadership looks like and be a good follower in the process. Because along the playthrough, throughout the first year of the game, we were just like struggling to get all of the utility upgrades to go ahead and make things better and make things smoother. And then once we got into year 2, it was really more about qualitative differences. And in a lot of ways, my older son was able to go ahead and take on some of the responsibilities from me, and I was able to devote myself to the things that required concentrated effort to be able to achieve so that we could unlock other things on the farm that we would not have been able to do otherwise.
And it's funny because this is all within the confines of a game.
Right.
A recreational thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, games are meant to be enjoyable,
Right.
are meant to be fun. So we are respecting each other's natural personality bends, and this is how we enjoy spending time. And the best part of it is now we are enjoying spending time together in a corporate effort.
Right.
And that is the best thing is, one, we as parents get to enjoy and really take time to notice who our kids are at their core.
Right.
They enjoy helping us in an effort together. Our oldest daughter, she wanted to do this whole thing where she got this different catalog
Okay.
and make her house really cute like she wants it to be.
Right.
Seeing her work toward that part, that was her own little personal mission that she had.
Mm-hmm.
And then our son had another thing. And then I would just say, hey, I really love this at some point. And they would both be like, well, that's something she wants to do, but she's helping do other things in her kind of, my docket is always pretty full. I'm like running to the end of the clock there.
Yeah.
Always. And it's mainly because I don't do things in the most efficient time-wise way.
Sure. But you order things according to how you can establish them in your mind to do the thing.
But everybody knows that I'm doing like big foundational things. So nobody gets too mad when I was supposed to get to this thing and I didn't. So
Yeah.
I'm like a day late and I'm really sorry about that.
But nothing went fundamentally wrong as a result of it, right? Because the things that are must-dos are not typically on your plate. The
Yes.
must-dos are on my plate normally. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I got the thing done.
And this was
Cool.
always an understanding from the beginning. Like
Right.
we established what this would be in the beginning when we even conceived to start doing, like press new game.
Right.
Like before that, it was like, I'm going to be the one. I'm not going into go,
Not going to the mines.
not
I'm
limes and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do my farming thing. And even with events and stuff, I'm like, everybody's waiting for me to finish a community event because this is the one time I get to talk to people and get like my quarter of a heart relationship with these people.
That's so funny.
But it's interesting because one, yeah, it's supposed to be a game. It's supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were going to just do things to min-max everything,
Yeah, it would be less fun.
nobody would have fun. So it's been neat. It's been a relational thing. It's been a fun thing. And then it's also been like a cohesive family activity.
Yeah.
And I adore this.
Hey, families that game together stay together.
They do.
That's an
It's
important
interesting.
thing.
It's so funny that there's been so much background chatter, especially on social media, about shaming like gamers and stuff.
Well,
Y'all don't even know.
It's from the
guys.
context of gamers that are only gamers, and they go ahead and do this subsistence level of work where they're just like barely making it. They're like paycheck to paycheck, and then they're not really going beyond that, and they're not developing themselves in any realistic way beyond the basic subsistence level because our society shames men into providing excess resources. They don't care that women don't provide excess resources, generally speaking, and they go ahead and are a net negative on tax basis and things like that because the expectation isn't on women to do that. The expectation is on men to create excess resources so that we can go ahead and raise a family and do all that on our labor. So that's why it's shamed.
Yeah.
You don't see people shaming Henry Cavill.
Yeah, for
Right.
building a computer. For
You don't see people
painting his little 40K minis.
right. You don't see people shaming successful men that also game. You don't see people shaming Post Malone for enjoying Magic the Gathering and paying $2 million for the one-on-one ring. Nobody's shaming him for that
No,
because he
actually.
freaking earned it.
I love that it was very happily accepted.
Yeah.
Like they're probably all little backbiters, but the general consensus was like the One Ring is with
With its owner.
its owner. Yeah, I love that.
So I think that the shaming on gaming has to do with a lack of male initiative and not on gaming in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's just that gaming as a whole tends to get a bad rap because you have the Cheeto dust finger people that are like the unfortunate representation of gaming gone wrong.
When that's your whole identity.
Yes. So let's go ahead and move on to the last law for today, and that is Law 28. We already hit a lot of this in our discussion earlier, but the idea is enter action with boldness. So this runs right in line with core convictions. It runs right in line with having a strong identity and knowing why you are who you are and whose you are. And so the idea is that when you hesitate in terms of taking action, it signals weakness to people around you. So that's the opposite of having the boldness and walking through crowds and them folding around you. It's the opposite effect. It's the Cheeto dust effect where you're just kind of, I don't know what I'm this shriveled up like person that is not somebody to be reckoned with. So those guys are often disregarded, right? If you go ahead and look at Psychomath's table, it's the not people zone. It's those people that are 7 and below that don't register as people to a lot of women. It's those guys that are in this bucket of not living life with boldness.
And even if you happen to juke the system a little bit, those are people who, you know, you're going to, even if you're at least seen as a meal ticket, you are tolerated, you are not accepted and valued.
And you will never get her best. You are a meal ticket. You would end up being the guy
The
that
stepping
she
stone on the way to something better.
or she's had a wild life and then she settles for you, right? And you never want to be the guy that's getting her settled best. You want to be the guy that is earning the best that she has.
This is those people who have like deftly clung to this marriage, and even though they haven't had sex in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years.
It's disgusting.
And it's, I already know the answer to this, but tell me, who filed first?
Yeah.
Of course she did.
Of course she filed.
If you've already suffered through 10 years of a sexless marriage, I already know the answer to that.
Yeah. So there are real costs for waiting for permission if you are a person that has convictions. And so you may as well live life knowing what the left and right boundaries are and acting boldly within those left and right boundaries. Now, if you have no idea what the boundaries are, sometimes it's okay to go ahead and act first and ask permission later, depending on the nature of the thing. But that's a completely contextual thing.
Yeah.
At church, sometimes we've got a head deacon that will make a call, and sometimes it's just a matter of urgency that the call needs to be made. And it isn't a matter of, hey, let's go ahead and we can wait a week. Let's go ahead and make this decision. No, it's like a decision needs to be made now, and he makes the decision. And 9 times out of 10, it works out great. But every now and then, it doesn't go exactly that. I'm not going to fault him for making a call when a call needed to be made, because he acted in good faith and tried his best based on his perspective at the time to make that call.
And the fact that a call was made and it's only 9 out of 10 times that it's the right one, that there was a 1 out of 10 that you hit, default setting, you have a 50-50 chance of being right. So obviously there are some characteristics in place that they did to manipulate the system so that the best call was made, considering the options at the time.
Sure.
That's why they're in the position that they're in.
Yeah. Generally speaking, he makes good calls. And so
that's exactly,
So the thing is, we're willing to go ahead and give benefit of the doubt because
nobody's perfect.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. And we're not going to go ahead and Monday morning quarterback somebody because that's just, it's unfair to them. And you are not the person that had the football at the time. And if you were, would you have done as well?
Who knows?
Who knows? Because you're not in the situation to make that call. So taking initiative is a key facet of masculine leadership. And by being willing to be the guy that takes the football and either runs it down the field or gets it to the right person for the job to take it down the field, that's what leadership is about. And that's why, generally speaking, the quarterback is considered the leadership position on a football team because they're the person that in real time, they need to make the call. And it's on them to make decisions. And sometimes it's just not going to be the right one. But hopefully, over time, they have trained themselves to read the field for an extended period of time. And usually that's been the case. Normally, they started in high school football. They went ahead and built up to college football. And then they got up to the NFL. And through that crucible of ascending to the different levels, they're able to use their experience and training to make a good assessment of the battlefield, so to speak. And I think that in so many ways, men need to have those catalyzing experiences in some realm of endeavor to be effective leaders. Because unless you've been through a crucible of some kind, you've never been tested. And if you've never been tested, we don't know if you can be dependent on when the stakes are high. Mm-hmm. And when stakes are high, that's when you need leadership more than anything else.
Or at least you have been prepared at a material level.
Right. And like you have training of some sort.
That tempering process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's why like boys in a lot of ways need rites of passage to go ahead and build themselves up to be a man. And unfortunately for us as a society, we just don't have that right now.
And also there's not as much grace for that as possible as there used to be.
Yeah, because we just go ahead and expect the world of men and then no grace and no room to fail.
Yeah.
And I think that in so many ways, it goes to show what women are attracted to. Like they're attracted to the guys that are decisive and act and they're bold and are making decisions because they're leaving a mark to be seen. And so women will go ahead and take a look at what's going on and they're like, I see this guy's doing stuff.
The reactive.
They are reactive by nature, whereas men are to be proactive by nature.
And the fact that there aren't, statistically now, there are very few fathers in the home. Mm-hmm. And that is the actual fundamental problem here.
Yeah, the single motherhood rate is ridiculous, and we've let this whole no-fault divorce thing take over a lot of marriages, and we've taken ecclesiastical authority away from churches and vested all that power in the state, and we are reaping the destruction that comes alongside that.
It makes me think of the whole thing where we've talked about this before, where Paul in his letter says, be a man.
Oh, yeah. Because
nobody knows now what that is.
Because in that culture, they knew exactly what that meant. They knew just by the word had a story associated with it, and they could go ahead and associate with the story that was being told. It was like its own self-contained idiomatic expression with a whole story to express that. And what the word for be a man is to have courage, to be brave. And it's a special kind of bravery, like in war, which is why it was expressed to men that way in the context of spiritual warfare and standing up for the truth. Mm-hmm. So much of that is right there, wrapped up in this one small Greek word, which is crazy how sometimes different languages can have so much context in one word.
This is like the very foundational thing of what it means to raise children.
Right.
Is to give them an environment that is low stakes, that is insulated for them to fail.
Yeah.
For them to know and to hone their decision-making processes, to hone their character, and to shape themselves to become adults, not just go, oh my gosh, you're 16 years old. Now I got to figure out how to cram all this adulting skills into you, if they do that at all. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, it's just, okay, you're 18, now get out, go figure it out.
Which is crazy.
That is not the time to start figuring that out.
That's insane.
You need to start, honestly. An intentional parent will start this process, start it
super early
at 8.
Or even before
Give
then.
or take. But definitely we made decision before we even had children.
Right.
And even at the time we were really fleshing it out when our oldest was toddler.
Right.
Like a baby. We went to our first homeschool convention before she was 1.
Sure, because we knew what we wanted to do.
Because we knew what we were about. We knew what was happening. We have at least endeavored to be very intentional about the way that we raise children, the way that we structure our family, our marriage, our household, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
We even talked about decades before we needed it. What was the end game if we need it for filial responsibility?
Right.
When caring for infirmed parents.
Right. And we already know what the deal is.
Even we had a structure at the time where it was like, okay, you're the oldest of 3. I'm an only child. Guess if somebody's mom needs to come live with us, guess who's the default one if we only... But now we don't have to choose.
Yeah.
Like we don't... Get them some bunk beds. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bunk beds in a mother-in-law suite.
Or have them have their own apartments or whatever. There's
Like,
all kinds of ways to make it happen.
girls together. Okay, goodbye. No, I'm just kidding. We got you.
Yeah. Anyhow, let's go ahead and start landing the plane.
Yeah.
So the general idea that ties these 4 laws together are ideas of identity and drawing forth the meaning of your personal mission, goal, directive, and those things that are transcendent and beyond oneself, because those are the kinds of things that will strengthen you to be able to act with boldness and to be a man that is worth reckoning with and a man worth following, if by nobody else but your wife. A lot of guys are struggling in the marriage world and in the dating world right now. But I tell you what, the guys at the top are not worrying at all. They've got the pick of the litter. Be that guy. Have options. You'll be much better off for it. Now, here are some closing questions to go ahead and ask yourself if you're looking to work on these things. Where have men been told to wait when they should act? Something that's really applicable in our society right now. Where does modern culture punish decisiveness? If it comes from men and they're leading their family, it comes from all over the place. From the very kind of people that you would want to avoid because they're here to put the stumbling block in front of you, and they're there to oppose you on purpose because they cannot stand for men to lead their families. Finally, what would change if men led with clarity instead of consensus? There's a time and a place for consensus. Normally, that involves higher level dealings, not the fundamental level of the family. There are times that decisions need to be made. Make decisions wisely, gentlemen.
That is definitely the thing I see most that is, one, touted by women who are trying to feminize marriages.
All right.
It's a partnership and all of that stuff.
That's disgusting. That whole thing.
That is chaos, not clarity. Clarity is where we talk about the separation between worth and roles.
Right.
Where you are supposed to love your wife, and that is part of that is listening to her, but it is in an advisory capacity.
Yes.
If you are a wife, you are trying to be like, we're a partnership. No, you're not. I hope not. If you are, you're doing it wrong. But your voice is supposed to be heard. You are not supposed to be just a silent participant. That's willless, and being a partnership is willful. Willing is offering your perspective, sharing your perspective, because trust me, I know too, because I'm a woman, that sometimes if it isn't at least just said, my head's almost going to explode. But I have had to work on it where I've gotten to a point where at least if I say it and I just go, I just needed to say it. And you love me enough to be like, okay.
I've
but
heard you. Yeah.
You are not even just saying, okay, now you said it, great, you feel better now. Can we continue on with the actual decision? No, you're going to hear it.
Sure.
And the thing is that, like, my husband never listens to me. One, being listened to and being heard does not necessarily mean you get your way. It's not evidenced in that you got your way.
Which is what a lot of people get twisted.
Yeah, that's the thing. And if you just say, my husband never listens to me, please don't ever say that. One, that's probably not true. And if it is, you picked him.
Right.
You chose to stand. Nobody was, by and large, nobody's like holding a pew-pew to your head and telling you that you have to say, I do. This is usually a choice in the first world that we make.
Yeah.
So you're just admitting that you picked wrong.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Ouch. The bottom line, gentlemen, if this is an area that you need to work on, I encourage you to take the time, build yourself up, figure out what it is that you believe in and why, and to live it out with strength and clarity. The forge is ready. It's time for you to get to work.